My name is Perrigo. I'm one of the computerized educators here at GAML. I'm going to walk you through a little bit about how I use the Echo feature in CreativeStudio today. So I'm going to be working on this quilt, and I've already done all of the background quilting, but I want to add some accents to the specific blocks, and I'm actually going to use the Echo feature to create those for me. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit about how I do that. I'm going to use some of our drawing tools to go and draw around the block itself on the quilt. And then I'll convert that, and then we're going to use the Echo feature from the drawing, and we're going to echo the inside of that drawing that we just did. So I'm going to walk you through a little bit of that. One of the big things that I always have with my Statler is I have my drawing functions on the left side of my mode stop so that I can actually access them from my machine head. So that's a big thing that I usually like to modify my tool strip up at the very top. So I can modify the tool strip to move those over so I can select them from my machine head. So let's go ahead. I'm going to walk over here and I'm just going to show you some of the features. This is the block that I'm going to be creating an accent for. So it's kind of an odd shape. It's lots of curves and some interesting things going on. So I'm going to walk you over here too. We're going to look at the screen real quick. And you'll see up here I have several different things. I have my draw pattern, but I also have my draw line and my draw arc. Over here selectable, there's my mode stop. So they're to the left of the mode stop, so I can actually get to them from my machine head. So I'm going to come over here, I'm going to select draw arc, which I can do from my machine head, but I'm going to do it here. And then I'm going to come over to the quilt, and I'm going to draw around this one block that I have. And I'm just going to use the machine head to click. And since I'm using arcs require me to click 3 points. The first part is the beginning of the arc, the middle one, the midpoint of the arc is our second click, our third click is the end point of that arc. Any additional clicks that I do past that give me yet another arc that's attached to that first arc, but it's not in the same pattern. So we'll deal with that in just a minute. So because I have a curve shape, I'm going to use draw arc to represent this in my machine. So you can see my laser, right? So I'm just going to use that laser and go around the outside of this block. So I'm just going to use the corner, and there's my first click, and my second one, and my third. And I'm just going to go, we're doing a straight line. And the middle click on an arc will always sound like a pop. And the next one will sound like a click, pop, click, pop, click, pop, click, pop, click, pop, click. And I'm just going to get it close to where I started, and I'm not going to worry about it. So I'm going to use the middle button up here to go ahead and close that drawing. But you see my laser's still on, I'm still in drawing mode, so I can go ahead and go around the middle part of that block as well. So I want to go around the middle part, so it requires me again to start with that 3-click thing to identify my first arc. So there's my first pop, click, and then I have another pop, click, pop, click, pop, click, and we're almost there. We have to make sure those straight sides, I have 3 clicks in there. And then I'm going to use that middle button again. I'm going to exit my drawing and then click it again to exit my drawing mode. You'll notice my laser went off. I know I'm exited out of my drawing mode. So now we're going to go up to the screen and see what we have. So you can see this is what I ended up with from all of that drawing. So it's really close. It's really similar to what I have. It's close enough. You can tell that these are all individual arcs, individual patterns. But what we need to do is we need to deal with, there's a little bit of a gap up here. So I'm just going to come in here and select that top one. I'm going to come into my nodes view, and I'm just going to go ahead and put my end snap on using the E key on my keyboard and snap that endpoint back up there. And I'm going to snap it in before I connect and combine all these patterns, because then I can use my endpoint select. So I'm going to grab that first pattern that we used, and I'm going to right click, and I'm actually going to use order join for this. So I'm going to use order join, and it will easily select all of those outside patterns for me. So I can then go ahead and combine them. I'm a right click girl. I don't use icons a whole lot. My hand is already on the mouse. So I need to do the same thing with this guy down here. So we need to make sure that this bottom one is connected as well. So I'm going to come in. Again, I have my endpoint snap on, so I can snap him into place. And then we can come in. I want to do my order join there, and I can combine all of those patterns. So now I have one pattern for the outside and one pattern from the inside. And if I had actually paid attention, I probably wanted to start them down here. But that's not a problem, because we have nodes, so I can come into nodes, and I'm actually going to break the pattern down here and then grab this first half, and so I just want to start with that one. So I'm going to do my order join on that half, and then I'm just going to come in here and show you my stops and starts and put some of those flags on, if I can get them. Well, we got my start and end. There we go. So you can see I have my start and end points in different places. So again, I want to make sure I grab these two patterns, right? So I'm going to hold down my control key and grab the second one, and I'm going to combine those. So now our start pattern's down here. I'm going to do the same with our outer pattern. I'm going to grab a point down here, and let's just do our order join from there and combine them. So now I've changed the start and the end of these patterns to be down here at the bottom. And what I can do is I'm just going to come up here to draw a line, and I'm going to use my endpoint snapper. So you can tell I have my endpoint snap still on because I have my little pink dot. I'm going to draw a line from one of those patterns to the next, and then right click to exit. And then I'm going to grab that very first pattern we put on the screen, and I'm going to do another order join. So what this next order join is going to do is it's going to actually follow that little line pattern that we put from the outer pattern to the inner pattern. And we're doing that because I want to use echo, right? I want to use echo to fill this kind of weird space up here at the top. So I'm going to do my order join, and those all become one pattern. So I moved the start and end points down here because I didn't want the start and end points to affect this area that I wanted to use the echo in up on the top part. So now that I have both of those in the right order, I'm going to actually go ahead and combine them so that they're all in one pattern. Now that it's all in one pattern, I can select it and we can start playing with our echo feature. I can come down to my echo pattern, and if you see over here on our very right hand side, I have my spacing set to 1/2 inch, and I only want one echo. But right now I have an outside echo, right? It defaults to outside, but I want to echo on the inside of that pattern. So I'm going to click inside, and I get mostly what works. And I'm actually going to go ahead and say okay to this guy because it's not exactly what I wanted, but it's really close. So I'm going to say okay. And then I can come down here, and we're just going to use the nodes, and we're going to trim this guy. Right? So I can divide these patterns. I'm using my nodes button and dividing up those patterns. So now I can grab that second half and get rid of him, because I don't really want to echo way down in this bottom area. I want to leave him all puffy. So then I want to go ahead and grab not that pattern, there's our next pattern, and I want to connect these two so that echo will actually stitch in one. So I need to go back into my nodes view, and notice I still have my endpoint snaps on, so I can come down here and connect those, right? And if I need to do any little hairline adjustments, make that work. And again, I want this to all stitch out in one piece, so my easy shortcut for that, since I connected the nodes down here, I'm going to right click and come in to do my order join, and it sets those two patterns to be in the right order and the right direction. So now with both of them highlighted, I can come in here and do my combine. And then here's the big thing. I don't actually want to stitch out this pattern, right? Because I've already done all of my ditch work. It's already stitched down. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just toggle that pattern sewn so that you can see just what I want to be doing on this guy. I'm going to move the machine head a little so you can see it a little bit better. So now I've created a pattern for this block, a very customized inner echo for a block that, you know, would typically be something that's a little bit harder to address with all those crazy curves going around there. But it's absolutely something that we can do with our Statler. And, you know, using a couple of tools, I used Draw Arc and, you know, order join a couple of times here and there. But after doing the Draw Arc with my machine head to get that represented in here, and then I actually have that curved inner echo piece, I'm ready to go ahead and stitch that up. So any questions coming up on how we got to that point? I can definitely go ahead and we can start stitching that out. But I mean, you can see that it's going to have a bigger puffy area down here at the bottom, right? And it's going to come around here in the middle. So I can go ahead and we can start having that stitch. And again, I typically, because I'm working on quilts that go to shows a lot of times, I typically don't have machine tie-offs, so I'm just going to let it stitch. And so it's just going to come around and it's going to leave that 1/2 inch puffy area all the way around the edge. I'm just kind of using my hands to make sure everything's all flat and square, everything's straight, putting that echo in, right? Because all of these blocks in this quilt are custom, they're all improv pieced. So now I'm going to go ahead, I'm just going to pull that up. And again, I don't have machine tie-off, so I'm going to go back later and actually cut these and tie and bury them by hand. So now you can see we have a very custom quilted echo in the center of that block. Very, very quick and easy. Just takes a couple of little minutes of knowing how to use the tools, right? And use them effectively to create a very custom design on the fly. So that's one of the main reasons I use Echo, and with CreativeStudio 7, we're actually able to echo not only patterns. I can echo patterns, I can echo boundaries. If I create a trim, I can echo around a trim. So the other thing, like you saw here, we actually created that echo from the part of the inside of that pattern. I could have created it off of the other inside part, right? So let's go play a little bit more with echo.
What speed were you at?
I typically have my machine stitching at a speed of 5, which is fairly slow. But typically, like I said, I'm doing a lot of custom work, so when I'm doing custom bits, I try to go pretty slow. So I stitched lower on the one side just because that's how the Echo gave it to me, and it gives it a little more wonkiness, right? All of these blocks on the quilt are just a little bit different. So I mean, I can show you a little bit more. Yeah, so this one, when I go and create the Echo, it's definitely going to come up into this area, right? And this one up here, I'm going to have the Echo, but it's just going to go in this bigger section. And then this one down here, it's going to have, you know, a little Echo on this side and a little Echo on this side. So actually, I'll show you, I've done a bigger section of these. So I'm actually going to come in, the little blue parts that I've traded into boundaries are little accents. But you can see, there's the one that we just did, right? But I've gone and represented all of the blocks on this area of the quilt. So you can see it goes a little bit into that side area. You can see out down here, we're getting into, you know, there's an Echo on that part and an Echo on this part. And so, again, it just depends on how that Echo gets calculated. And quite frankly, it's one of those things that if I was hand guiding this, I would have to make the choice at what point do we stop. And quite frankly, with the computer, I don't have to make that choice. I can let the computer make it for me, because as soon as it gets too tight, it will stop that Echo and come back out. And I like using the Echo on the inside because it gives me these sharp points on the ends, right? Because sometimes when you do an Echo on the outside, these are all rounded. But if when you do an Echo on the outside, it'll round some of the points. So let's do this. I'm actually going to, let's play with Echo just a little bit more. See if I can select the right things. I'm going to come up and we're going to say Echo pattern. So you can see it's trying to echo the Echo that I already have in here, and it's getting us nice rounded big curves on the outside of that pattern. But if I switch it to the inside, right, it keeps a little bit more pointy. But here's the thing, I can also come in and see if I can select. I can't get those. Sometimes you can actually select the boundary. If all I had was the boundary on here, I could echo the boundary. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to pull these out. So I'm going to go ahead and just convert those back into patterns so I can move them. And I'm going to select those patterns and move them out here. And if I were to take these patterns, and we'll go ahead and do our echo on those, just so you can see, when we get an echo on the outside, we get these big rounded areas when we go around the outside. But I can actually echo the inside of that pattern too. I might have to go in with my spacing. Yep, because he's not very big. So I'm going to take my spacing down just a little. Just so you can see how the program actually calculates going around those points in there. I can come down and say again. And instead of echoing the inside of that little twinkle star, I can actually tell it to do the inside of that one. So again, with CreativeStudio 7, it's fairly versatile in terms of what it recognizes as an area that it can echo. So I'm trying to use that to our advantage on this quilt, where it has these big, bold curves on the quilt, so that I can create these inner echoes that are fully custom. So any other questions about how to use Echo or how I'm using Echo? Anything like that? This quilt is by my good friend Stephanie Rule. If you're on Instagram or online at all, her Instagram is Spontaneous Threads. She does a lot of improv work, and I have a lot of work to get all of those improv shapes represented into CreativeStudio. but it's definitely, made me the quilter I am today by forcing me to think outside the box. So if that's not a whole lot more questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I'm going to go ahead and see you guys later. We will be back again tomorrow at 3 o'clock Central Time. So go ahead and check back in for more tips and tricks and techniques.